Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, and congratulations to all of you. I'm from Venezuela. I was elected mayor in the year 2000, re-elected in the year 2004. In the year 2008, I was running for higher office, and I was disqualified for political reasons. Then I started a nonviolent civil resistance movement that we called for protest in the year 2014. And tens of thousands of people went out to the streets, and that took me to prison. So I spent the next 7 years in confinement, 4 years in a military prison in solitary confinement. Then I was taken to house arrest. Then I called again for protest, and they took me back to military prison, then back to house arrest, from where I escaped in the year 2019. I had to seek refuge at the Spanish embassy, where I stayed a year and a half, and at the end of 2020, I was able, against my will, because I never wanted to leave my country, to escape Venezuela. Since then, the most frequent question that people ask me is, why is Maduro still in power? And I am sure that this is a question that many activists are faced all over the world. And there are many ways to answer this. One could say that it's because of the support from the military. Others could say that it's because of the natural resources. Or even others could say that it's because of the opposition not being united. Although all of those reasons might be part of the reason why Maduro is still in power, I believe that there is one above all of them, and that is the fact that Maduro has support from China, from Russia, from Iran, and from all the autocratic countries that are working together as a network. So I came out and I started to meet people who, like me, had been political prisoners, who had been the leaders of their movements in their own countries. And we realized that we had a very similar view of why our dictators were in power. But we also realized that we were not united. And that is why we started an initiative called the World Liberty Congress, with the focus of creating an alternative alliance of freedom fighters, pro-democracy activists and movements to align and to support each other in our own internal struggle. And that's how the Liberty Congress started. And we had our first event in Lithuania last year. Actually, we did it in Lithuania because of this conference where I met Mantas, our friend, and that's how we ended up in Lithuania at the end of last year. And part of our discussion has been tech and freedom, tech and democracy. And this is a critical issue. Of course, we have seen how technology can be used, and actually is being used very effectively by autocrats to have a hold to power. And we need to create an alternative. And I can give you 2 examples of things that we did in Venezuela. In the year 2020, as we all know, there was COVID. And we were able to secure funds that were frozen from the dictatorship of Nicolás Maduro that were in the United States. And we created a program to support medical doctors and nurses. And we were able to identify 85,000 medical doctors and nurses whose salary was $3 per month, and to provide them through a stable coin directly a transfer of $100 per month. And we were able to do this with a license from Treasury and OFAC. And we were able to do this in a way that it was transparent, that it was efficient, and had absolutely no link with the autocratic regime of Nicolás Maduro. They tried to take down the webpage of information, so we created another one. We put a VPN, and we went around all of the restrictions of the dictatorship. And we were able to provide, at a critical moment, support for medical doctors and nurses. We are taking this idea of technology and freedom and democracy beyond our particular cases. We recently started an initiative called the Freedom Academy. And this is the idea that we have from the Liberty Congress to support direct action in places where there are autocratic regimes. So we have been giving support and training to activists. We started in Zambia a couple of weeks ago with the first 100 trainers of trainers. And part of the training that we give is on financial freedom. So we are giving activists the possibility to use new technologies, to use ways to receive funds in an effective, transparent, and an efficient way. And this is something that can grow in a way that can have an impact directly on our struggle for freedom. Because I'm a true believer that financial freedom is not isolated from political freedom. Actually, freedom is not one thing. Freedom, and I learned this the hard way in a 2x2 cell where I was in solitary confinement, freedom is a sum of many things. It's a capacity of individuals in a society to speak freely, to associate freely, to move freely, to decide freely. So all of these things is what makes a society free, and technology can play a big part on this. However, we can talk about all of the different apps and all of the different alternatives for financial freedom, for communication, and for securing the activists and people to have more independence. But there is one condition, and I think this conference today is an important place to send this message. That condition might seem very simple, but it is to have access to free and uncensored internet. If there is no access to free and uncensored internet, all of these apps and many others that we've been discussing are all theory, because billions of people today are exposed to the fact that they don't have access to internet, and if they do, it's censored. So I believe that in the same way that humanity came together to provide a vaccine to COVID-19, I think that the free world needs to come together and figure out a way that billions of people could have access to free and uncensored internet. And then there is another infrastructure challenge, which is affordable smartphones. So having access to internet and affordable smartphones can really be the beginning of a turning point in the struggle for freedom. I'm a true believer that democracy requires technology, but I'm also a true believer that technology requires a commitment to freedom, a commitment to democracy, a commitment to the values of human rights. So I congratulate the Copenhagen Summit for making sure that this discussion about technology, freedom, and democracy is always present in our vision of how to transition to democracy. Thank you very much.